Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Scrimshaw Show. My name is Evan Scrimshaw. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you haven't gotten around to it, last week I did an episode on the Canadian Tories and why they're completely useless. And I riffed about the Canadian media at the end. I did the Ever Beaver podcast, recorded that on Sunday. I don't know when it's going up. I'll link to it on Twitter when it does. But I had a great conversation there, I think, for almost 2 hours. Recorded that one Sunday night, so that'll be a good conversation when it comes out. You get to hear me sort of talk at length, partially a lot about Canada and a lot about sort of where the world's been and where it's going, but also I think more about me than I usually talk about in public, and certainly more about the process of me than usually gets talked about in public. Follow me on Twitter at eScrimshaw. Follow the show on Twitter at Scrimshaw_show. Read my writing at scrimshawunscripted.substack.com. I'll have an article up at some point with some of the Ontario stuff I talk about. We'll be getting to. I'll have some broader Ontario thoughts coming in the next couple of days. It's Masters Week, so that becomes sort of my priority for Thursday and Friday. If you were listening on Thursday or Friday, happy Masters Week. Buy my book, Salvation in the Storm. It's very good. I read it recently. It's still very good. Still kind of can't believe I wrote a book good enough to publish, but hey, I did. But we're going to talk about two things on today's show. We're going to talk about Ontario at the end, but we're going to start with the U.S. Senate because, one, I don't do enough U.S. content these days, and two, I've got takes. And I'm frustrated and I don't want to write it in an article, so you're getting them here because, well, I feel like it. Two polls this week from Emerson College came out, one North Carolina, one Georgia. Georgia poll has former Heisman Trophy winner and alleged, but let's be honest, definitely guilty, Herschel Walker, domestic abuser Herschel Walker. Should probably put what he actually did. 4 points up on Reverend Raphael Warnock. And then in North Carolina, Sherry Beasley beats Pat McCrory by 2. Now, I don't quite know what I believe. The fact that Signal, a leading Republican pollster, polled North Carolina at the same time and has, Beasley in a tie against McCrory, that sort of, suggests that the Georgia result is the one that's wrong. But, it's always hard to do that with, different pollsters corroborating them, whatever. One of those two Emerson results is wrong, though. And this is the thing that's going to drive me crazy for all of 2022, right? And I'm aware of the fact that I have little legitimacy on this topic because Georgia or Virginia 2021 and all of the, 413 from 2020, right? I get it. I get that I don't have a lot of credibility and, I don't know what my 2022 Senate map will be. This isn't a case where I have strong opinions. I do need to wait for, I do need to wait for a long time to get them. My statements now are much less declarative than my first statements about Virginia. And I'm really going to try and talk myself out of being in a situation like in 2020 where, I let myself get more confident throughout the cycle that Democrats were going to win when, some of the first things I wrote about the 2020 general election were, they were pretty close to right. But I then moved my opinions and everything way further than they were. But the thing that I do have the credibility to say, because I have a brain, is holy mother of God, Herschel Walker's not winning by 4, Sherry Beasley was winning by 2. Those two things are just not happening on the same day. They're just not happening on the same universe, right? A universe in which Beasley's up to is one where Fetterman's in a toss-up in Pennsylvania, Warnock wins by 4, Cortez Masto wins by 5, or maybe 3. It's Nevada. It's hard for any Democrat to win by 5. And one where Mark Kelly wins by 4 in Arizona. A universe in which Walker wins by 4 is one where Mark Kelly loses by 5. Cortez Masto is in a toss-up, if not in a race she's losing. Dr. Oz wins by 6. Manila Barnes loses by 10 against Ron Johnson, right? Like, that's just the kind of environment you're looking at. And so one of those two polls is wrong. It's not really relevant right now which one it is, because even if you accept that the Georgia poll is correct today, that doesn't mean it will be correct in 6 months, right? We have a campaign. We have all of the domestic abuse allegations against Herschel Walker to be vetted, to be brought forward, to be fought about in public, which, will happen. And the thing that I'd sort of come back to with, with all of this is like, you can actually make a pretty good democratic optimism case for 2022. It's not the strongest argument, but you can make it, right? It's, Beasley speeding McCrory. It's the GOP are really running bad Senate candidates, like pretty much everywhere, right? Assuming it's Blake Masters in Arizona. Laxalt's not great. You can make a case that, if it's David McCormick in Pennsylvania, he's not great. The New Hampshire GOP are going to throw that seat away because they can't get anyone with a brain to run. And then if you go to the House, right, like the maps are pretty good for Democrats. They just need to win Biden one territory. You have incumbents. Maybe the January 6th stuff, if the committee's work can really expand it, if inflation comes down, if COVID gets better. Like, you can make a case and you can sound sort of correct about it when you do, and then you just fundamentally sit back and look at the fact that, Joe Biden has an approval rating with white voters that I am currently averaging out to be about 37%, and disapproval averaging out to be 59%, and you realize that you're fucked. Biden lost white voters by 12%. In 2020, he's currently about 22 points underwater on approval with white voters, and that's the ballgame. Because as much as you can look at polls which have him, in the, low to mid 40s and go, but only 60% of black voters approve, they'll still vote for us anyways. Yeah. The problem is that you were 12 points underwater with whites last time, and you're 22 points underwater with whites now. And that's the ballgame. That's the swing. That's why Democrats are in trouble. And that's going to hurt in Georgia. As much as, you can win with very good black turnout, you still need to do reasonably well with white voters. You still need to do well enough with white voters, which is why Biden, Ossoff, and Warnock won, and Abrams, Clinton, Jason Carter, and Michelle Nunn didn't in 2018, 16, 14, respectively. The broader Senate map, I still think the GOP are favorites in Arizona. I think partially because I'm starting to think it's more Brnovich, but just because it's really hard to make a case that Mark Kelly will be able to outrun the top of the ticket enough. Given that one of the ways that you would expect the Democrats to really outrun the top of the ticket last time would be not get hammered with Hispanics as much, but Arizona Democrats didn't suffer the same losses with Hispanics that they did in, say, Texas, so you can't bank on either Kelly doing better with Hispanics because he has a good operation with them, or Democrats doing, or just basically like low turnout Trumpian Hispanics not turning out because they didn't. There wasn't the same pool of them as in the Rio Grande. And so you get to this point, you get to this thing where, like, okay, so I think Mark Kelly, I think he's in like a, slightly worse than coin flip situation. I think he's got, 45% chance of winning. Okay, not great, but, you can get there, right? I think he, probably loses by something like, a point, maybe 2. It's absolutely, something you can come back from, and we have no good polling of that race. I think Cortez Masto, I think Cortez Masto is fine. I don't think Laxalt's good. I think every poll except like one bad poll, which had her like basically like 30% of Hispanics or some crap. I don't even remember who it was. You know, mostly have her ahead, so I'm feeling fairly fine about that race. And then I feel it's Georgia. I don't know. I feel fine. I don't think Herschel Walker's going to win. I just don't. I think the abuse allegations are going to hurt him in Forsyth. I think Warnock and Abrams will be able to get black turnout high enough, and I think that the metric shitload of money that Georgia Democrats have is going to be enough. I think the fact that Warnock and John Ossoff are friends means that Ossoff is going to be able to put his shoulder in for him, and I think Ossoff has has done a very good job of commanding a presence in the Senate. He's been mostly low profile. He does a lot of good constituent work. He's been very good at like getting specific things done for Georgia. I think that will help just sort of the Democratic appeal. I think Obama's probably going to go multiple times. I think Kamala Harris will go multiple times. I think they're going to put their shoulder to the wheel for a state that saved the party. I think they will pay that state back. And also, there's 5 competitive Senate races, realistically. Maybe 6, maybe 7. I guess if you count both Wisconsin and New Hampshire as competitive, and I don't really count either of them as competitive. But, so there's just, there's not a lot of places you need to send people, right? I don't think we're sending Obama back to Florida again, because I think we've all accepted that one's DOA. But Democrats have this problem in the Senate where, I kind of, right now I have them getting 51. I have the GOP getting 51 seats, right? I have them winning 1, losing 2, and yet, so subjectively, I think that's okay, but I'm also thinking about the fact that when the tide goes out, the tide tends to go out, and I don't really see a circumstance, I kind of think 47 is more likely than 49, even though I currently project 49, which it's a very complicated mess. I don't feel great about Democratic chances in Pennsylvania. I'd feel better if it's David McCormick than Dr. Oz. I know. McCormick is a pro-gay marriage moderate, which means he's going to be absolutely fucking pissed for rural Republican turnout. Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania governor feels like the kind of race where Democrats just kind of get a lead and they kind of keep it because all the Republican challengers suck. So, against Democratic Attorney General Josh Shapiro. So it's one of those things where just if the Republican Governors Association leaves town because they don't think they can beat Shapiro, if McCormick runs to the top of the ticket for the Senate race, and Democrats have incumbents in Pennsylvania 7 and Pennsylvania 8, which are both currently which are 2 of the 3 truly competitive Republican or Democratic House seats, both of which I currently have flipping, but not by the most amounts. But also, I don't really value incumbency that much in my modeling. But if Cartwright maybe squeaks out a win, if Democrats can win the 7th, you can see a situation where Republican turnout in Pennsylvania is just not that high because they're coming out for a pro-gay marriage moderate Jeb Bush donor or a governor's race where they're kind of fine, and Shapiro is certainly much more popular in Scranton in the Northeast than than the party at large. So you do see a situation where that could Pennsylvania could get away from the GOP, but I think Oz wins that primary because McCormick's a pro-gay marriage moderate, and pro-gay marriage moderates don't win Republican primaries anymore. I think Democrats shouldn't invest too much time in Wisconsin. I think Ron Johnson's probably fine. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, or anything other than a despicable human being at this point, but he's an incumbent senator running for a third term. Mandela Barnes is a guy who was elected to lieutenant governor. Yes, he'll be able to boost black turnout in Milwaukee and Madison. I suspect he's going to get fucking smashed inside of it. I know Johnson's favorables aren't great. If we couldn't beat him in 2016, I don't think we're going to beat him now. I just don't. And then North Carolina. I mean, Beasley v. McCrory is the absolute... Like, can we get this in a different environment, man? Because if it's a different environment, she kicks his ass. She's a good candidate. She has an ability to run, outrun Biden. She's won tough races before for state Supreme Court. Like, Sherrod Beasley is good. Sherrod Beasley is very good. She's probably going to run against a guy who isn't very good, who lost the governorship in 2016 because he signed the anti-trans bathroom bill. McCrory's probably the nominee because even a Ted Button said so. The primary is coming up like not too far from now. It's just it's a disaster of a primary for the GOP, but even more than it being a disaster of a primary, it's unfortunately the kind of race that Republicans will still probably win with a bad nominee because of the environment, and it just leaves me, hoping, wishing, and praying that we could get these races in a situation where we didn't have such useless where we didn't get this in a bad environment, right? If this could have been in if Sherrod Beasley would have run for Senate last time. I know she was running for seat again, right? She wouldn't have. She probably wouldn't be running for Senate had she won the state Supreme Court seat. But anyways, it's just mildly frustrating to me. But we are where we are. On Ontario, this is me speaking as directly to my audience as I ever do. Usually I'm just talking and there's a mic in front of my face. Okay? That's not what this is. Here I am, and I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to you directly. Ontario Liberals, Ontario left-wingers, Ontario progressives. Look me in the eyes, or look at my screen, and listen. Calm the fuck down. Calm the fuck down, guys. We are 2 months out, and you're acting like he's got a 30-seat majority. Calm yourselves down. I make the joke all the time that I'm the therapist for distressed liberals, and it's kind of a joke. But it's also not one, guys. You need me to tell you that everything's going to be okay. You needed me during the federal campaign. You're going to need me in this Ontario campaign. And I get it, right? I get it. I remember that one Main Street poll that came out. I literally was asleep. I wake up to a deluge of people with some article I wrote. Plus, are you freaked out about Main Street? No? We were years away from an election at that point. We're still years away from an election. We didn't know the Liberal NDP deal, but it's one poll. Who cares? But no, I have people DMing me, and I have this, and I try to tell people to calm down in my DMs, and I'm told that, if people, when you have such a following, you have to expect that people are going to think that are going to want to know what you think. Sure, fine, whatever, although I never asked for it, so, bite me on that level. The problem, such as it is, for the Liberal Party and for Liberal partisans and people who want a left-wing government is, you're all fucking babies. Calm down. I don't think I updated my seat projection after Legere. It's either 64 or 65 seats. I really am not going to pretend to remember right now, and I'm too lazy to look it up. I'll update it next time we I'll update next time. I'll update with the next poll. It's fine. But, like, it's just one of these things where, like, people have an expectation of me, partially because, you know, I write as frequently as I do that they can sort of expect these things of me. But at some point, you have to calm the fuck down, guys. Doug Ford has either 62 seats is half of the legislature, right? Which would just be a disastrous, hilarious parliament to elect, right? So Doug Ford either has 2 more than 62 or 3 more than 62. We're 2 months from the election. Things are going to change. Things are going to change a lot, right? What happens when 22% of Ontario teachers have COVID or 22% of Ontario students have it? What happens when schools have to close? What happens when parents have to try and find childcare arrangements? What happens when what happens when there aren't enough nurses to do the jobs? What happens when ERs, not in Northern Ontario, which, I don't say this to diminish the real, healthcare capacity issues that are happening in Northern Ontario. I say this to diminish how much the Canadian media gives a fuck about them. But what happens when it's Toronto ERs closing and not buttfuck Thunder Bay or wherever, right? What happens when it's Steve Pakin's kid, or I guess Steve Pakin's grandkids, who get it in school, right? What happens? It's going to be a different situation, right? It's going to be a different situation once we know what the Liberal housing offer is. It's going to be a different situation when we're in an election and Stephen Del Duca is being covered every night. It's going to be a different situation. I stand by the idea that Stephen Del Duca is likely to be the next Premier of Ontario. I believe Stephen Del Duca is going to be the Premier of Ontario at the end of this year. I do not know how quickly the machinations of getting Ford out of a minority will take, because he will test his numbers on the floor and he will get voted down like Christy Clark did in BC in 2017, and like the New Brunswick Liberals did, Frank Gallant. I was trying to remember his name. We're in a situation where people hate Doug Ford, and I get that people hate Doug Ford. But Stephen Del Duca will win the election is a statement about what will happen at the election. Stephen Del Duca will be Premier of Ontario at the end of this year is a statement about what will happen at the end of the year. It is not a statement that the Liberals will be in majority government in every poll from here till St. Swithin's Day. Stop acting like it is. You're smarter than this. You're better than this. And you aren't stupid people because you read my site. If you know who I am and you give enough of a fuck to read a guy with a Substack, you're not stupid people, so stop acting like it. I am making an educated guess. You trust my judgment because I was right about Canada. Right? That's why people follow me. That's why people read my shit. Because you think that I know more than you do. That's why people care what I have to think. That's why people want me to write as much as they do. Because they think that I have an expertise, that I have an intelligence, that I have an understanding of how this is going to work that is better than their own. Because if you just wanted to see projections, you could get those from Fournier. If you just wanted someone to spit out numbers, you could fund that. Hell, if you just wanted my C projection, you would get that. But you don't. You want my articles, you want my writing, and you want my thoughts. Because you think that on this topic, in this area of expertise and intelligence, I have something that you don't. That's what you think. Clearly, or you wouldn't care what I have to say, right? If you didn't think that I had expertise, you wouldn't give a shit what I think. There's a reason I don't give a shit what Fournier has to say, because I don't think he knows anything. I don't think he has a better understanding of the map than I do. I think he has a fancy computer algorithm that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I think that fancy computer algorithm spits out nonsense on a repeated basis, and I don't think he's smart enough about this topic, about Ontario or Canadian politics generally, to know when what his algorithm is spitting out makes sense, or when what his algorithm is spitting out is complete and utter hogwash, right? I don't understand how PJ Fournier had, I don't understand how his polling averages work. And the problem is that I think subjectively he would even admit, if we put him under truth serum, that they were spitting out some bullshit during the federal campaign. He consistently had the Conservatives up 7 in BC when the average of the polls was maybe 3. It was maybe a 3-point Conservative lead. I was pointing this out and pointing these out and pointing this out for days of the campaign, right? He called a 6-point Liberal lead in Ontario in an Angus Reid poll a slight lead before he blocked me because I called him a chuckle fuck. He's an idiot. But he has a national column and I have a Substack. I don't feel any jealousy about that. I don't give a shit. I don't need a Maclean's column. But what I do need is you to calm down. I don't know how many people give a shit about hockey. I don't, I have a lot of, Canadians and I have a lot of people in Toronto. So maybe some of you will care about this. Plenty you won't. If you don't, 30 seconds later, I'll be out of the story. But Tuesday night, the night before I was recording this, the Leafs had a 5-1 lead. Blew it, ended up losing 7-6 in overtime to the Florida Panthers, who were very good. It was the Leafs' second game in as many days. It was their 7th game in 11 days. They ran out of gas. And a certain hockey YouTuber who, if you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about, lost his damn mind last night in his post-game review because, it's demons, and it's David Ayres, and it's team as demons, they keep blowing leads, and Boston again, and herp derp. No. They were gassed because they played 7 times in 11 days. Shut up. Stop being stupid. And this is how I feel about Ontario. This is how I feel about my lovely readers who are freaking out about Doug Ford. Okay? You can't win every game, and you're not going to be leading in every poll. So calm the fuck down. Relax. And get with the program. My argument is not that Stephen Del Duca would win an election today. My argument is not that Stephen Del Duca will lead every poll between now and June 2nd. My argument is not that Stephen Del Duca will be in a position where my seat projection every single day between now and June 2nd will be in a position where Doug Ford won't be Doug Ford won't have a majority, and therefore Stephen Del Duca will be premier. That is not I don't want to say promise, but that's not the claim I am making to you. The claim I am making is that Stephen Del Duca will be there when the chips are down and when we're all looking around to figure out who the fuck won. That's the claim I'm making. Do not get this confused. Take a Xanax, get a fucking prescription, and calm the fuck down. I sort of mentioned this in a column, but no one really sort of picked up on it. And I'm going to tweet this at some point, but I'll just tack this on at the end. I write a lot. I write a lot of fiction, right? But one of the things I've never really done is I've never released that fiction sort of chapter by chapter. And so in a few weeks, I'm going to start doing that. I have a story. It's media centric. It's a theoretical American midterm set at the fictional DCN, Dorchester Cable News. It's a sort of fancy fake CNN. And it's, based on a couple characters and there's political intrigue and there's reporter intrigue and there's, drama up the wazoo. But I'm going to be publishing it every week. I'm going to be publishing a chapter. Haven't finished writing it yet. I'm in the process of writing it. I think it's going to be good. It's a creative challenge for me, which I think will be fun. But almost sort of more interestingly for me is, I don't know. It's a nice free way to get people acquainted with another side of me. I think my fiction writing helps explain the unique character that I am, and the sort of uniqueness of the way I have positioned myself. And so I hope you all enjoy it. But yeah, more details will be coming soon. I'll probably just do it through my Substack every Saturday, is sort of my thinking right now. But we'll see where we are. And with that, I'm gonna be done with this week's episode. I am actually really trying to do these more frequently now. I am actually trying to get to a weekly status. I have a couple of guests tentatively lined up for Ontario, which will be fun. Follow me on Twitter at eScrimshaw. Follow the Scrimshaw Show on Twitter at Scrimshaw_show. Read my writing at Salvation in the Storm. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and if you're watching on YouTube, give it a like. Yeah, drop a comment in the comment box below, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to build up something of a following on YouTube. So the thing is, I'm not trying to get rich off YouTube, but I would like to get to the point where I have enough subscribers that if I ever start doing this more seriously, I have some amount of way to get to the monetization threshold, which is I think it's I don't remember. I think it's 1,000 hours watched cumulatively on your channel and 1,000 subscribers, which wouldn't make me a lot of money, but hey, I'll take what I can get at this point. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the show. Next week I'll be back. Yeah, we'll see what I want to get into next week on the show. But yeah, I'll either be very, very happy next week on the show or very, very sad, and it will be all dependent on how Jordan Spieth does at the Masters. So we'll have to see about that. But until next time, have a good day.